Many experts think the US dollar is starting to lose value. There are many reasons for this. One big reason is that the dollar has lost 10.8% of its global value in just 6 months. This is the worst start to a year for the dollar in over 50 years. But there is something even bigger happening. Countries are slowly moving away from using the US dollar. In April, China sold $8.2 billion of US debt. Over the years, China has sold more than $600 billion in US debt. Most Americans don't know this is happening. But regular people are feeling the results. Veterans in Ohio, small shop owners in Georgia, and teachers in Michigan are noticing changes. Their pensions are getting smaller. Prices are going up. But no one is telling them the real reason why. The president gives speeches saying America is strong. But the truth is, the financial system is changing. This is not just about bonds or interest rates. It's about what happens when other countries stop trusting the US government. On July 4th, Americans were celebrating with fireworks. But in the background, something was going wrong. From 2012 to 2025, China sold 44% of the US bonds it used to hold. That's more than $600 billion gone. This didn't happen with big news or loud warnings. It happened slowly and quietly. Like a guest leaving a party without saying goodbye. In April 2025, China sold another $8.2 billion. No one in Washington talked about it. Only small Chinese bank reports mentioned it. It took many years to build trust between the US and China. But now, that trust is slowly breaking. And it wasn't China that broke the trust first. Things got worse when the US president raised taxes on Chinese goods. In April 2025, the US added a 145% tax on most electronics and car parts from China. This was the biggest tariff since 2018. China was not happy. And people on Wall Street were also very worried. The president said it showed strength. But behind the scenes, it looked like fear. You can't tax your biggest supplier and still expect them to lend you money. That's not a smart plan. That's just wishful thinking. China didn't fight with weapons. It fought with money. It stopped buying US debt. It started writing zero where it used to say buying US Treasuries. The White House didn't even notice. While the president gave speeches about victory, China quietly walked away. China is the biggest foreign lender to the US, but there were no headlines. No press conferences. Just silence. That $8.2 billion China sold in April was not just money. It was a warning. Not from a missile, but from a spreadsheet. So what happens when your biggest lender steps back? Most people think Treasury bonds are boring. But they are very important. They help keep America running. Every year, the US spends more than it earns. To fill the gap, it borrows money. That money pays for Medicare, veterans' pensions, Social Security, and road repairs. In July 2025, the US government said that 25% of all spending this year is paid with borrowed money. That means every time someone goes to a doctor using Medicare, there is a Treasury bond behind it. Every time a road is fixed, a Treasury bond is involved. But here's the problem. If China and others stop buying these bonds, someone else has to. If no one else steps in, the US has two bad options. First, it can raise interest rates to attract buyers. But this makes debt more expensive. Second, it can print more money. But this causes inflation. Oxford economist Maya Clenny said this is not just financial change. She called it quiet sabotage. And what did the president do? He went on stage in Wisconsin and cheered about tariffs. He said America is getting rich again. But the bond buyers were already leaving. They were taking your Medicare and Social Security with them. So next time your Social Security check is late, or your clinic closes early, don't blame the front desk worker. Ask who scared away the people who used to help pay for it. While American leaders argue about money, China is buying gold. Since early 2023, China has been buying 80 tons of gold each month. By mid-2025, China owns more than 2,300 tons of gold. It now has one of the biggest gold reserves in the world. But here's what makes this story even more interesting. Experts at UBS and JP Morgan believe that China may be hiding more gold than we know. They say China could be using state-run banks and secret offshore accounts to buy gold quietly. Why gold? Because gold doesn't argue. Gold doesn't need a passport. Gold doesn't follow US rules. It cannot be punished by sanctions. It cannot be frozen or hacked. It doesn't lose value from printing too much money. One expert said it simply, gold doesn't tweet, this change didn't happen by mistake. China started buying more gold because of what was happening in the White House. The 47th US president used the dollar as a political weapon. He added tariffs on allies. He punished other countries with sanctions. He used money like a tool in a game show. So China got the message. Why keep your money in a currency controlled by someone unpredictable? Instead, China started buying gold. While the US prints more dollars, China adds more gold to its books. The difference is huge. One country is inflating its problems. The other is buying safety and peace of mind. For China, this is more than just saving money. It's a signal to the world. China is saying, we don't need to follow US rules anymore, and the world is paying attention. Gold prices have gone up all through 2025. Bloomberg says prices could reach $2,600 per ounce by the end of the year if this continues. Back in Washington, the president keeps saying America is winning. But while he talks, China is preparing for a future where US promises can't be trusted. And they're backing that future with vaults full of gold. News headlines may talk about foreign reserves and finance, but for Michael Simmons in Ohio, this is personal. Michael served 26 years in the US Navy. He retired with honors. Now he's holding a letter from his pension fund. It says they're reassessing exposure to government bonds. Michael's voice shakes. What does that even mean? Are they gambling with my retirement? He's not alone. Millions of Americans depend on 401k plans, IRAs, and public pensions. Most of these are invested in US Treasury bonds. According to the US Department of Labor, more than 60% of public retirement funds rely on these bonds. Here's the problem. When foreign countries stop buying these bonds, like China did in April, the US has to raise interest rates to attract new buyers. But when rates go up, the value of older bonds goes down. That means many Americans have already lost 10% to 15% from their retirement savings. Almost overnight. A financial advisor in Cincinnati said, "It's like someone pulled the floor from under your retirement while you were still walking. And who pulled that rug?" A leader smiling at a rally, wearing a flag pin. Meanwhile, America's national debt just passed $37 trillion. In just one quarter, the government plans to borrow another $1 trillion. The system is holding together with hope and duct tape. If other countries stop buying US bonds, things get worse fast. Less money means late Social Security checks. It means cuts to veterans' benefits. It means stopping road and bridge projects. But the damage doesn't stop there. Small businesses are quietly struggling. Many of them depend on short-term loans connected to Treasury bond prices. When those prices swing wildly, banks get nervous. They stop giving loans or raise interest rates. For family-run shops in Arizona, Michigan, and Georgia, this makes survival even harder. Small businesses in America are having a hard time. Many have fired workers, missed paying salaries, or closed their doors. In June 2025, getting a loan or credit became harder than at any time in the last 5 years. This was reported by a group that supports small businesses. But what is the government doing? The man in the White House keeps saying he is winning with tariffs. But the economy that supports American life is falling apart. If this is called winning, maybe someone should check the scoreboard. While older Americans lost money in their retirement savings, and small businesses asked for help, another group quietly took action. They didn't leave the country. They just moved their money somewhere else. In the last week of June 2025, over $9 billion left the US stock market. That money didn't disappear. It went to other places. About $4.5 billion went to Japan. Japan was once called a slow economy. Another $3 billion went to Europe. And Europe is still struggling with its own problems. This was not panic. It was a smart move. An expert at HSBC said, "They're not fleeing danger. They're fleeing chaos, and that chaos doesn't wear a soldier's uniform. It wears a suit. It sits at a desk and keeps announcing new tariffs like it's a game show." Investors hate surprises. They don't like sudden rule changes or late-night posts online. Under the current president, America no longer feels like a safe place to invest. It has become an example of how to lose trust in just 4 years. The richest people notice the warning signs first. They're getting second passports. They're opening bank accounts in Switzerland. They're investing in Japan instead of US tech companies. According to Henley & Partners, applications from Americans trying to get citizenship through investment went up by 1,200% since 2020. There was a big jump in 2022. America used to be the place where money stayed. Now it's just a stop along the way. This isn't just about money. It's about trust. The world is starting to question if the US is still the leader in global finance. But the man in the Oval Office is still waving flags and smiling for cameras. Even while the ground beneath him is shaking. As more money leaves the US, a deeper change is happening. This is not just a short-term problem. This could be a permanent shift. In July 2025, Bank of America started shutting down parts of its US dollar services in Europe. This was a sign that the world is moving away from American banks. At the same time, BlackRock, the world's biggest money manager, started investing more in Japan and Europe than in the US. This was the first time they did this since the 2008 financial crisis. They called it a permanent rebalancing. This is not about anger. This is about adjusting to a new world. The world used to revolve around Wall Street. Now it's looking for other places to trust. And the reason is simple. People are losing trust in the US economy. What once looked like strong leadership now looks like people making things up. What once felt like clear direction now feels like confusion. Experts at the International Monetary Fund say this change could cost the US up to $1.2 trillion by 2030. That's $1.2 trillion in lost money and power. The world is creating a new system. In this new system, the US dollar is not the only important currency. And Washington's voice doesn't have the same power it once did. The old image of America as the center of global finance is fading. And the man in the White House still thinks the world is waiting for him. But the world has already moved on. It took 100 years to build America's financial reputation. Now, one president is putting it to the test. Sometimes, you don't know a storm is coming until the roof is already gone. A professor from Stanford said it best. America is not falling apart. But trust in America is. You don't need war or power cuts to create a national crisis. All you need is silence. Silence from buyers, allies, and global markets that once supported America. In April 2025, China quietly reduced its US bond holdings by $8.2 billion. There was no press release. No big speech. Just a small update from China's central bank. But that silence said everything. And when the world goes quiet, Americans start asking hard questions. Why is my paycheck late? Why did my school lose funding? Why can't the VA help me? Because when no one wants to buy US debt, who pays the teachers? Who funds the military? Who supports Medicare? These are not just scary thoughts. These are real results of a foreign policy filled with threats, trade wars, and angry messages. The president promised to make America great again. Instead, he made America harder to trust. Trust is not something you can fix with a speech. Once it's gone, there is no restart button. Only consequences. Empires don't fall all at once. They fall one broken friendship at a time. One nervous investor at a time. One bad press conference at a time. The US dollar is still strong for now. But trust is not built on slogans or tax fights. And it can't last under a leader who cares more about cheers than about real allies. America still has power. But no empire can survive if the world stops trusting it. So here's the big question. Do you think the dollar will survive the next 10 years as the world's most important currency?